friends. Today we're going to talk about tiny mirrors and how we all have them in our lives. Hi friends, this is Bethany Jennings, and you're listening to We Should Talk. It's a podcast where we talk about anything and everything to encourage, equip, and empower you to be a decent human. Let's talk. All right, we are back, and as promised, we are going to talk about tiny mirrors. What you talking about, Bethany? I'm glad you asked. So this past weekend, I spoke at a marriage and family conference, and one of the things in one of the sessions I taught was just this. It was the finishing part of one of my sessions. And I can't get the whole session on one episode. It was a lot. I couldn't even get all of my notes in one session. So it really was a lot. But basically I was talking about parenting and things of that nature. And the last part of my lesson, and what I'm going to share with you today, just a snippet, is our children are like tiny mirrors that display the best and worst of us in hyperbole. So all of your best qualities, you'll see in your kids at some point. All of your worst qualities, you will also see in your kids at some point. For me, I feel like I see the worst of me more, and it's not because my kids are bad. It's because I know it's stuff I have to work on. I know it's things that I need to conquer, and therefore demonstrate and teach my kids how to conquer. So my tiny mirrors are Onyx and Silas. Your tiny mirrors have their own names. Our kids really do bring out the best and worst of us because they display the best and worst of us. It's just how life works. It's genetics, it's generational, it's behavioral, it's environmental. You know, this is nature and nurture. They might need to do an episode on nature versus nurture. I'm not sure if I've ever done that. It's both of those things. Naturally, they're born with some predispositions from us, but the way we nurture them affects them as well. And, you know, that has to do with the neuroplasticity of the brain, and that has to do with our parenting style. And there's a lot that goes into that. A lot of the reasons we fail to parent the way we need to is because our children bring up certain unmet needs in our own lives, or certain things we have not worked through ourselves in our lives. So if in your life, every circumstance, every accident, every unplanned event was an absolute crisis, then that's how you're going to treat your kids. Now, for a toddler, it may not be they wrecked the car, right? I mean, hopefully it's not they wrecked the car. But for a toddler, it may be they spilled their juice. And then you just absolutely lose your mind on them. I cannot believe you spilled that juice. I just told you not to do that. And now we got a whole mess to clean up. And who's got to clean it up? Your mom's got to clean it up. I'm the one that does blah, blah, blah. And you just go off on this toddler. I know it's frustrating. I've been there. And I may or may not have said that very thing. Who's going to have to clean this mess up now? Mommy's going to have to clean this mess up now. But then I adjusted it to say, and you're going to help mommy. I'll be mid-sentence and have to fix myself. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. That's what it could look like for a toddler. Or maybe the entire time you were growing up, you were made to feel like an inconvenience. Your caregiver always had something better to do. Or you were just a piece of their puzzle, but they were not trying to help you put your puzzle together. You know what I mean? Like, I can't right now, mommy's working. Oh, I can't right now. I can't go pass the ball with you right now. Daddy's trying to get some stuff done. No, I can't come play with you in your room. I'm trying to clean the house. No, I can't. It was always no, 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 no. Or when you were trying to communicate something you needed, your parents would shush you because they were talking to someone. Or you were trying to convey a need in a more private setting, and they were very dismissive about that. Here's the thing. You tend to parent how you were parented. And if you don't like how you were parented, and you don't like the things that it brought out in you, the things that it kind of formed in you, then you're going to need to adjust your parenting style. My air just kicked on. Oh, my setting, I forgot. I'm sitting on my couch having coffee and toast before my kids wake up so I can take my morning supplements because my body's a temple and I'm trying to be healthy. You tend to parent how you were parented. And so if you don't like what that created in you or what that brings out in you, then you need to adjust that. So every accident doesn't have to be a crisis. Every change of plans is not an emergency. And you need to adjust your responses to that. Now, it's very difficult to adjust and break our responses because, again, neurons that fire together, wire together. If you have not listened to my Ruts episode, there's an episode on my podcast, I think it was last season, called Ruts, R-U-T-S, Ruts. And it talks about how our brains form ruts. Like physically, there's a rut in our brain, and it's because the neurons that fire together, wire together, and you think situation A calls for reaction B, right? So go to listen to that episode if you haven't already. The thing, again, the parenting, you have to retrain your brain. You have to retrain your brain if you want to parent differently than you were parented. Parenting, our parents, our caregivers are going to teach us something. Either we keep what they teach or we change because of what we were taught. Okay, but you need to decide which is what. And again, there may be certain things you do as a parent that your parents would never do when you were a kid. That's all right. It doesn't mean they're a bad parent. It just means they were parenting the best they knew how, and they were parenting for the time they were raising children. We are facing challenges now that we have never faced as parents. Our parents never dealt with the things we deal with half the time. I mean, there are some generational truths, you have a rebellious stage and you have a curious stage, and that goes back to neuroplasticity and Erikson stages, but we're not going to get into that right now. But we're dealing with things like social media being so involved in our daily lives. We're dealing with things like AI and learning to steward that properly. We're dealing with predators on minors like we never have before. We're dealing with a very gruesome society where certain things are made normal that are not normal at all. And so because of that, we have to step in and parent differently. Again, we know more now than we've ever known. My mom the other day said, well, I don't know how you survived. I don't know how you made it because I wouldn't let my kid have a sucker. It's not that my mom's a bad mom. She's a wonderful mom. She's an incredible Mimi. So loving, so caring. But it was just, we just had candy growing up. Wasn't a big deal. And everyone calm down. I allow my kids to have chocolate and, actually decent fruit chews. But we just don't like hard candy. That's the thing my husband said. He didn't want his kids to have hard candy. We just don't do it. And I agree with him. There's lots of high fructose corn syrup and Lord knows what kind of diets. There are alternatives. That's a completely different conversation. I say that to say this. My mom is not a bad mom. My mom is not a bad Mimi. She is incredible at both of those things. I do things a little differently than she does. Thankfully, she respects my parenting. And that's the key. That's the key as well when you are parenting in times that have never been parented in before. Whoever is helping you with your children, they need to be on the same page as you, which means you need to communicate what page you're on. You need to tell them the expectations. If that means you bring certain things to the setting for your child, then do that. If you don't want your child having any screen time at all whatsoever, you need to communicate that, and you need to offer an alternative. You need to make sure there's toys that they can play with. You need to make sure there's books they can read. If you do not want your child to have any kind of dyes in their food, fine. But when you bring them to Sunday school, you bring what they are allowed to have. It's not fair to the Sunday school teachers because your kid's going to be whining and crying. And it's not fair to your kid because your kid's going to be whining and crying, wondering why it can't eat. You choose how you parent. Your parenting preferences are yours to have. But you also need to communicate them and you need to facilitate them. Back to the tiny mirrors topic. Why does this happen? Because, again, it triggers certain things in us. I know trigger is it's very much a buzzword. I'm so triggered. Okay, you're triggered. You know what you're going to do about it. Recognizing the trigger is only half the battle. When you do not resolve the trigger and you only recognize the trigger, then you create an idol. and it controls your behavior. And I will do a whole separate episode. Maybe next week. Maybe next week we'll talk about triggers. But you cannot let those things control you. So again, once you see what's happening, you have to fix what's happening. How do you fix it? Sometimes I am midstream getting on to my kids, and I have to say, you know what? Give mommy just a second. I need to reset. And I will. I'll take a minute. I'll close my eyes. I'll say a little prayer. I'll do whatever. And it's so good for your kids to see that. Because they don't need to think you're perfect. They need to know how to recover. They need to know how to reset. And so sometimes I'll close my eyes, say a little prayer, I'll take a deep breath. I say, okay, I don't want to yell at you. I want to tell you what I need from you. Tell you what I expect from you. Tell you how to do this better. Sometimes I legitimately have to do it midstream. I have to. If I can catch myself beforehand, I do those things before I react, right? And again, it's okay for your kid to see that. That is you rewiring your brain so that you don't set up your child for failure by wiring their brain the same way yours is. And again, this doesn't mean your parents are bad. It may just mean they parented differently. You may have had amazing parents, but you became addicted to the stress hormone in your college years or your pre-married years or your married years. Truth be told, it doesn't make you a bad person at all. But you continuing to do it after you know what's going on, that actually does kind of make you a bad person. You're making bad choices, and that's not okay. All right, I'm going to go. I've hit my limit for this episode. I love you guys. I think you're really cool. I'm sure you're doing great. I just want to help us be better humans. Hope this was helpful. Love y'all. Bye. Well, that was fun. I'm glad you stuck around for the whole thing. And thank you for talking to me today. Y'all go like and follow and review and do all the podcast things that people do. And don't forget to be a good human.